Hey, I bet you have stories to tell. Matter of fact, I'm sure you have stories to tell, stories from your personal life, your history, the things you've done and seen and experienced. And they're all rolling around up here in your head someplace. And right now they're just a bunch of ideas, not stories yet. That's me. I have stories I want to tell. And what I found is I have a lot of events, a lot of memories, a lot of stuff to share, but when it comes time to make it go from up here, out here, and into the ear, I'm not so good at that. I want to be a better storyteller. So in my desire to be a better storyteller, I thought I'll find some storytellers and learn how. So I looked around and I Googled and I searched and I found that where I live, there were some local storytelling events. So I went to those thinking maybe I'll meet some fellow wannabe storytellers. I think wannabe is a good word there. I appreciate the people that got up to tell their stories, but they were the kind of stories that people tell after they've had 2 or 3 drinks and you're all sitting around trying to one-up each other. Those kind of stories, not really a complete story that does anything for you except like add to a resume. I don't know how to say it. There were some good storytellers, and they were good because, well, they were older guys like me, like us, had life experience. One guy was a documentary filmmaker. I mean, story's his thing. Another guy was a story, music, writer, producer kind of guy. And he just had a weird life, and he'd told his stories many times. And you could tell when they told their stories that these are stories they told before, they practiced. And because of that, they were intriguing. They drew me into their story. Oh, you like that effect? Whoa. That's the action camera thing going on, you know. But anyway, I want to be a better storyteller. So I did those events. And even when I told a story at that event, afterwards I thought about it and I thought, you know, I kind of pulled that out of my backside. It was just floating around in my head and I tried to put it together while I was sharing it. And it was a struggle and it was hard and I wasn't sure if I was telling it right. And when I got home, my ADHD brain started harassing me and shaming me, maybe for saying too much or saying it wrong or thinking people didn't understand what I said. But a lot of us are that way. But here's the deal. We can be storytellers and we need to be storytellers. My desire, like I said, is to be a better storyteller. And I'm starting this channel. I'm inviting you to continue this video if you want to be a better storyteller, because I want to share with you what I did to be better and how I'm still doing it. And I want to invite you to follow along with me. Every time a new video comes out, I'm going to be sharing something else I learned in becoming a better storyteller. Why we tell stories? Well, we tell stories because that's a normal form of communication. It has been since the beginning of time. We didn't always know how to write. We didn't have books. We didn't have paper. We would transfer information through story. Now, I looked up some neuroscience stuff on this, and you can Google it too, the neuroscience of storytelling. And what you will find, here's a car almost ran over a squirrel over here. Sorry, it distracted me for a second. Me and squirrels have this special relationship. Let's go back. Now, what you'll find is that storytelling affects us in several ways. One of the things that storytelling does is it activates parts of our brain that produce, I don't want to say drugs. One produces oxy something and another is cortisol. And anyway, what happens when we hear a story and when we're into the story, we're drawn in, well, it causes a really good dopamine hit to those of us telling it, but also to those that are hearing it, because we're created to be drawn into story, to be paying attention, to learn that way, to share information. So that's storytelling. So the science of storytelling is pretty cool. Unfortunately, though, storytelling in recent history has been co-opted and manipulated into a marketing tool. Even when I was researching books, I wanted to tell better stories. How do I tell better stories? So I started Googling books and information, and you know what I found? Almost everything is written for business or marketing or sales. Now, it was kind of offensive to me at first, but then I realized it's the same information. It's just how it's used. And that can be that way with technology or anything, really. You can use it for whatever your purpose may be. Well, my purpose is I want to share good stories. I want to have stories to leave for my family. I want them to know who I am. You ever get one of those weird books on like Mother's Day or Father's Day, and it says like, Grandpa, tell me your story, or Mom, tell me your story? I see those, and actually I think I have one. And this is what I thought. I don't want to sit down, well, maybe I do. The questions are unique, but I thought, is this really what they want to know? And then I'm thinking, you gave me this gift, but you want me to go through and fill it out and then give it back to you, so that's kind of a gift to you. Well, it's cool. I would love to give that gift to you, but I would rather it be like this. I would rather it be now in stories when I see you, and I would love to sit down with my grandkids and say, hey, can I tell you a story? Can I tell you a story about your mom? Can I tell you a story about when I was your age? That's the kind of things I want to do. I want to be able to use story to bless, to inspire, to encourage, to lead to creativity, to convict if needed, which, you know, when Grandpa hangs out with some small kids that are a little, yeah, we keep them alive from 8 to 5. Now, story is also one of the primary ways we contribute to enforcing our personal identity. Who am I? Who am I? Well, I'm Dan. You ever been in a job interview and this happened to me, and this was a few years ago, so I was, you know, early 60s, and I'm sitting across from someone maybe in their mid 20s, and they said, tell me something about yourself, Dan. And it stumped me, and I thought, do you really want to know something about me? And then I didn't say anything, and then I finally said, can you clarify the question? Do you want to know about me personally, or do you want to know about my employment, my job abilities? I had to know. And they said, oh, I want to know about you. And then I realized it's a question that they're required to ask. And I said, well, how much time do you have? And he goes, what? I go, well, but I'm in my 60s. I've got 6 decades worth of stories and information about me. Which decade would you like to hear from? Well, I didn't get that job, which was fine. I just don't know why they wanted to ask that kind of question when all they were going to hire for is someone to put product on a shelf. But, you know, that's okay. But that's what I mean. Do you have an answer for questions when someone asks, tell us something about yourself? Do you have a story? Is it there? What I found is that within myself, as I begin this journey, I thought I had stories. But what I had up here, well, I had ingredients for stories. I have memories and memories of events. So I went through my life decade by decade and got out a big pad of legal paper and started writing down events from I started in 1970 through 1979. That was school, still high school. And events that came to mind, the big things that I remembered, the big changes. And I went through my life and up to current and had, probably about 400 things that could probably be a possible story. Some might be good ones, some might not. I don't know, because I haven't developed them yet. But that's where I started, and that's when I realized what I have are not stories, because when I tried to tell a story from those, it was like trying to make it up as I was telling it. It almost made me feel like I was lying. A good story is something you already have. You don't have to make it on the spot. Now, that can be done, but this is probably a better way, and the way most stories were done. Stories have been told before. When you hear a good story, that's not the first time it was told. Someone's told that before. They've probably tweaked it a little and changed it and maybe told it for the occasion that they were in there. What we have are ingredients. Oh, here's a good one. I'm going to tell you a story. Now, this is just an analogy. The stuff we have in our brain is ingredients for story. And we're carrying it around in there. Sometimes it's a little heavy, you know, and we don't know that, but it's like we just keep filling it up with stuff and it never comes out anymore. Because now the way we take out is usually in the form of text or something like that. We don't really sit across from someone and say, hey, can I tell you a story? So we have all this stuff we're knocking around in there. And we think we have stories, but really we have events and memories. How about this? Cake mix. When you wake up in the middle of the night with the munchies, or middle of the day, or whenever, when you go to the kitchen, you don't open the cupboard where you keep the baking supplies, do you? Well, at our house, that's where the chocolate chips are. But for most folks, you know, you're not going to open the baking supplies and go, oh, look, there's some flour and some baking soda and, oh, some thyme. Oh, look at that. That just sounds so what you know, because those are ingredients. Kind of like when you look at that box of cake mix. So there it is, Duncan Hines, devil's food. So you look at the pictures, chocolate, it's got the frosting on it with the coconut and a pecan, that caramel stuff. I'm only using that because it's almost my birthday and that's my favorite. You hear that? Now, so you pull it out and you go, oh, that looks really good. Well, you don't open the box up and grab a spoon and take a big scoop and start chowing down and going, devil's food cake. No, that's a mix. That's part of the ingredients. What you see on the box is like what you see in the events in your mind is, this is a story about devil's food cake. Well, here's a mix for devil's food cake, but what do? You gotta mix it. You gotta add eggs, you gotta add the water, you gotta add the oil, you gotta whip it up, you gotta bake it. Oh, and then you gotta get the frosting. The frosting, you know, the good stuff with the pecans and the coconut and the caramel. And I think I could buy a little tub of that at Dollar Tree. I'll have to check. Anyway, but you take it and then you bake it. It takes time. It doesn't just come out of the box edible. That's how a lot of our stories are. They don't just come out of our brain tellable. They need to be worked on, and that's what I'm doing now. I'm trying to become a better storyteller. There's techniques for storytelling, but it takes work. And I want to invite you to come with me to learn those, to become a better storyteller, to become a better personal storyteller, to pull those visions out of your head, to pull the cake mix out of the cupboard and learn how to whip it up and create a good story. And then you know what you do? You practice it. So in future videos, that's what we're going to look at. How do we do this? How do we find the memories? How do we figure out which ones are for story? How do we develop that story? How do we practice that story? Who do we tell this story to? Why am I telling this story? That's to come. I could go on, but you have other things to do. Ponder this. Start looking in the back of your mind, pulling out memories, start making a list. Start making a list of the events. Go decade by decade if you need to. And then look at that list and think, are these stories? Think about it. Hey, that's all I got for now. I'm going to finish my coffee and make sure these geese aren't sneaking up on me. Record off. Stop recording.